How's it going, guys? PlayStation Enthusiast here. I know it's been a minute since I've uploaded a video on this channel, but I recently got an early copy of Biomutant, and I figured there's no better time than now than to come back and hopefully start uploading weekly videos. So without further ado, let's jump on into my review discussion with Brett Larson, another Brett, not me. He's going to be helping me out on this channel for the foreseeable future. We're going to be doing a lot of reactions and reviews together. I cannot wait. Really exciting stuff. But enough chatter, let's get to the review. All right, Brett, are you there?
I'm here.
So you've been playing Biomutant with me, and we sort of went through the exact same situation with this game, in that we did not like the beginning at all. The opening hours were very sluggish, but then the game really opens up and starts to become a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's funny that it happened to us both the same exact way, too. And, man, it almost felt like I went through an emotional roller coaster because I was so excited for this game. And you know this, like, there's so many good games that are coming out around this 4 to 8 week period of really solid games. And this was right at the top of that entire list for me. I was really excited for this game. So, you know, when we got it and started playing it, I have to say that first night I put like 2 hours into it. And I was kind of bummed out. I just wasn't feeling it the first night.
It's because that first 2 hours, okay, so we haven't even really talked about it yet. So the game opens up, and it throws so much story and exposition and information about all the tribes in this world and the types of animals. It's just overload. And
it's complete overload.
To add to that, the tutorials it throws in there as well.
Yep.
And sorry, you're going to hear background noise in this video because we both have kids. But I do want to say I have beaten it, and Brett has not beaten it yet, so just so the audience knows.
I think I probably, so we kind of went a little bit different paths. Brett Medlock kind of more or less mainlined it, and I did quite a bit of side stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm still pretty far into the game. I would say I'm within 5 hours of beating it. If I just from here on out mainline the rest of it, probably got like 4 or 5 hours left.
Yeah.
But to add on to what you said, man, that opening couple hours, they just beat you over the head with dialogue and story. And it's funny to hear either me or you complain about too much story because we both love a good story in a game.
Exactly.
But it was just the way it opened. I can't explain why. It just was such a bummer and kind of a letdown to me, those opening couple hours. Like I played the opening couple hours, and I remember putting it down that night because it was pretty late. And I didn't touch it for a couple days because I was kind of disappointed because I was so excited for this game.
Yeah.
So I put it down for a couple days. But then when I came back to it, I'm like, okay, I've been excited for this game. I'm going to give it a real shot. And once I really just dove in and kind of got past that hump, once you get past that initial hump of, like you said, beating you over the head with the story, the dialogue, the tutorials and everything like that, it finally opens up. And once it opens up, there's a really good and actually really kind of a special game inside of it.
Definitely. And I'm just glad that, well, first off, I'm glad that I buckled down and played a lot more of it because I was going to just do like a video impressions, and now I've actually beaten the game, so this is my full review of the game.
Yep.
But I did mostly mainline it, mainly because a lot of the side stuff is story involved, and I'll be honest, and I never do this, I stopped caring about the story, and I even got to the point where I was skipping dialogue, just because I wanted to get back into the world, back into the gameplay.
Yep.
And that's where I think the game shines. And upgrading your character is a lot of fun. There's so many different weapons you can use and abilities, and using them all during the combat is one thing that the beginning of the game does not have either.
At all.
So not only is it throwing all this stuff at you, but there's also, like, the combat is very basic in the beginning.
Yes.
I'm just like, is this as good as it gets? Like, wow. And then, no, it's actually a lot better than it first gives off. After I played yesterday for like pretty much 9 hours straight, I started to realize, okay, so this isn't nearly as complicated as I originally thought it was.
Yep.
You're just spending each currency on special abilities or like upgrading your guns and stuff like that. It's not that bad. Just once again, the impression the game gives off in the beginning is not really what you end up feeling when you're halfway through or nearing the end. It's almost like two different experiences occurred, you know?
If I was going to recommend to anybody playing this game, I would almost say don't ignore the opening tutorial, but just know that it's not like what it seems in the opening couple hours. Just stick with it because it opens up, and it's almost kind of like trial and error. In the beginning, I felt so overwhelmed with the tutorials and the upgrading and stuff. Once I finally just kind of went, okay, I'm just going to put all that stuff aside and just play it, you start to figure things out on your own, and then you're going, okay, now I understand why I'm picking up this scrap. Now I understand why I'm doing this and why I'm doing that, and it starts to make sense. And then that's, like you said, when it starts to get really fun, when you start upgrading your powers, where you start, gaining different abilities and stuff like that. That's when it really gets fun. The gameplay is really, really good once you get to that point.
Yeah, and that's what I want to get into next. So basically, the beginning of this video, we just want to stress, if you get the game and you're disappointed at first, keep going. But now let's get into the meat, the combat. First off, the game, it's a little finicky when it comes to the combat. It's not the tightest feeling game, but at the same time, getting all the different types of abilities and stuff, like I love the attack where it's one of the special like magic powers where you can get this like dirt fist to shoot up out of the ground and propel the enemies into the air. I love doing that.
I think it's a mud punch.
Yeah, and then if you start attacking after you do that, he'll automatically go up and start hitting them. Like you don't even have to jump. And it really reminds me of the early God of War games. If you just held down square, Kratos would just jump in the air and start hitting them. And that's basically how this does,
That's
which
true.
I really liked. And not only that, but the different types of guns, it's also fun implementing them into the gameplay, which my favorite one wasn't even a gun. It was the hook claw that you can use to like sling onto enemies or bring them toward you. That was a lot of fun. Have you unlocked that yet?
I actually have not. I was just gonna say I have not got that yet, actually. But I'm not surprised to hear that some kind of hook shot wouldn't be one of your favorites.
Yeah, it's definitely always my favorite in games. And then aside from that, I really loved the big hammer as the melee attack. What have you been using?
So I've been, and one thing that's kind of cool with this too is even if you get a weapon, it's so customizable. Like you can take the base of a weapon and replace it with, like, I started with a sword and then I used that same base but put a hammer onto it. And so it was really fast, but it was called a crush weapon, I think is what they call it. So it's really powerful, even though it's really fast. So I used that one, and I also used the bamboo stick. What is that? You get from one of your tribes.
Yeah, it's like the really long pole looking thing, right?
It's like the stick. I can't remember what exactly it's called.
I started using that a little bit too, but I didn't like the special triangle attack after you hit square with that, because it seemed like it only worked on smaller enemies.
Yeah, it only works on small enemies because you literally pick an enemy up. So if you're fighting a large enemy,
yeah, you like slam them down.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate with that one, but I just loved the way it looked, like the way he was like doing all the attacks.
Yeah, you're just spinning it around and stuff like that. And that's one reason I liked it, is it's really fast because he's constantly spinning that stick around. So you can get a lot of hits just by kind of tapping square over and over.
Yeah, and what I meant by finicky with the combat, it usually mainly had to do with locking onto enemies. Like the game sometimes feels perfectly fine, but then other times you're just trying to hit an enemy, but he's just sitting there like hitting straight ahead without actually going to the enemy at all.
Yeah.
As for like how the game runs and stuff, I did find that it did chug for me in some areas, and there was some weird glitches where like the game would just like skip and like it would just like jolt ahead like for a second. And also the audio would just randomly cut out of nowhere.
Yes.
And it was really unfortunate because I would be like walking over this beautiful like mountaintop, and like the grass and the wind would be blowing, and this perfect song would be playing, and then all of a sudden it just hard cut, like the song would just go away. And I was like, oh,
you're just like waiting for this. And it even happened after a boss battle to me last night. Like, no giving anything away from spoilers, but there's like 4 main bosses in this game.
Yeah.
And I beat the second one, and I was like, hell yes! I beat the second boss. And it was like this really cool cutscene, it seemed like, and then all of a sudden it just stopped.
Yeah,
like,
dude,
abruptly cut.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I was like, what? Then it just shows you like leaving and walking away from the battle. I'm like, dude, I earned something from that. I should have had some really cool cutscene.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. But it didn't happen all the time. Aside from that, though, the music is great. Like,
dude, I love the soundtrack.
It sucked that it would kind of cut out sometimes, like in times that you wanted it to feel like a better edit, or like a transition.
It's very like subtle music. It kind of reminded me of Breath of the Wild.
I was gonna say that, or even sometimes it reminded me of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Like the battle song kind of reminded me of Final Fantasy at times, and then there was another one of the songs, but I really like the music.
Now, speaking of sound, the gunshots.
Oh my gosh.
We both immediately noticed this. I played with headphones the first night, and I could not believe how bad the sound quality was on the gun. So, is it every gun? Because I didn't play with headphones every time.
So it's not every gun, and that's what was so weird to me. So and I played with headset on half the time, headset off half the time. And it almost seemed like the game period sounded just not right when I had my headset on. But when I
Yeah.
take it off, it sounded fine. However, the one gun you're talking about in particular, it's the first gun you get, and it just sounds like
I can't even believe it.
it sounds like a recording of a recording or something. Like it's really muffled and like distant, and like you're waiting for this really cool gunshot, and it's like bing bing, and like it's just a really weird noise. It just didn't seem right. But after that, the guns don't sound that bad.
And it almost sounded like every shot was the same like audio repeating over and over.
Right. Yeah.
Like it wasn't like slightly different every time. It was just the same thing every single time.
Yep. But I don't know if this is something that they could fix or if it's something that they could patch out. But again, not to bring it up again for a second time, but the sound just did not sound right with headphones on. But it sounded pretty much fine with them off.
But yeah, the sound quality overall was like hit or miss. Sometimes it'd be amazing. Other times it'd sound like a child's toy being recorded with a recording of a recording. But yeah, so on to the Breath of the Wild stuff, because this game weirdly has been being compared to Breath of the Wild. Well, not weirdly, because there are similarities. Sure. But first off, this game focuses way more on story, which we stressed at the beginning of the video. It just never lets up. And actually, I'll just bring this up real fast. I almost feel like the world and everything about it would be way more interesting if they didn't tell me every single thing about every tribe, about every environment, about every area. If they just dropped me in this world and let me discover everything naturally and not like force feed it down my throat, then I think I'd be way more intrigued by like the history of the world, and I would actually care. But man, like some of them cutscenes just went on nonstop. But I won't get back to that.
I think part of that problem was, and I hate to say this because the narrator did a good job and like he was like a soothing voice to listen to. Yeah. But I almost feel like he talked too often. And for people that don't know, like Definitely. There's a narrator that literally tells you everything, and every story beat, he's the only person that talks. Like characters that you meet will talk. My problem with the narrator was this. When you talk to characters, kind of like Breath of the Wild, none of them speak in English or really in any language, period. It's all just like some made-up language, which is fine.
It's like Animal Crossing, just...
Exactly, which is, I don't have a problem with that, but normally in games like that, I think Nier was this, no, Nier wasn't, sorry. But normally in games like that, as they're talking in whatever language that in, it'll just have subtitles at the bottom. I would have just rather had that, but the problem with this is the character you're talking to will speak in whatever language. You have to wait for them to finish, and then the narrator will translate what they're saying.
Exactly.
So there's times I'm sitting there waiting forever just to hear what they have to say, and the translator talked really slow. So there were times where I felt myself like almost kind of skipping through the dialogue because I'm like, okay, I'll just read it really fast, and that's unfortunate because I don't like taking away from what the story is trying to tell me, but it just seemed like it dragged on too much in some dialogue beats.
Yeah, dude. Like I'll be honest, like I said at the top, I never skip dialogue and story. I'm a big story guy in video games. This is one story that I was just not interested in.
Yeah.
But like I've been trying to stress, the game in here is actually really good. The world, exploring, the combat, Absolutely. The visuals, which we haven't even talked about yet. We'll get to that.
It sounds like we're kind of like saying a lot of negative stuff about it. It's not that bad.
No, there's definitely more good here than bad.
Absolutely.
Now, on to the visuals. This game is really stunning. And the thing is that if you look close, like if you walk up to a wall or look at the ground, the textures are actually pretty bad looking.
Yes.
But when you're walking and moving, the wind is blowing, the grass is moving around. It's like a jaw-dropping game, like in motion. It's like beautiful.
There was a couple times when, I always noticed this whenever there was fire and the smoke was coming off the top of the fire. I would always see like the textures. You see like the lines from the textures. It just looked rough. But then, like you said, there's other times when this game is just stunning. Like one of the prettiest games I've seen, period.
Yeah, like the big like open plains with all the grass. And they're still like popping and stuff, but it's usually so pretty like close to you that it's hard to even focus on what's popping in the distance.
Right. The cool thing with this world is they all have different territories, and each territory has like a certain color to it. Like some of them are like dark and drab, and then there's like a bright orange area, and then there's like a you know what I'm like, just some very lush, vibrant areas that are really pretty.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give the visuals, even though we haven't been scoring anything up until this point. I'm gonna give the visuals a 9 out of 10.
Absolutely.
And it's mostly for the big, open, gorgeous areas. Because like I was saying, if you look close, those are some really ugly textures. But if you look at it as a whole while you're moving, it's like, oh my god, this is stunning. It's like one of the best looking like open fields I've ever seen. But one thing I noticed, and this was last night, I think. Or wait, did I beat the game today? Yeah, today.
Oh, you did today.
I saw this guy on the side of the road, and I had never really seen him, but the game like focused the camera on him like it wanted me to go to him, and I went to him, and I did like a flashback
thing. Memory thing. Yeah, okay. I know what you're talking about.
And then it let me choose like a certain like skill or weapon, and I was like, wait, was I supposed to be stopping and talking to him the entire game?
Yep.
Because I didn't even get like the Breath of the Wild glider until I was in the last like 2 hours of the game.
Yeah, see, and I've had that since about like hour 3, and I think part of that's because I went off and did a lot more side stuff as you were doing more main stuff. Because I ran into that guy and got all 4 power-ups. Because I think there's
lucky.
Yeah, there's a strength power-up, there's a glider, your little Atama, whatever guy that's with you can shoot while you're fighting, and then one other one. So there's some cool things. Like as soon as I'd see him, I'd run to him because I knew that there would be like a little flashback, and then I'd get some power up.
Yeah, that is one thing this game really does though, is it'll just surprise you out of nowhere with like a new ability or like a new mechanic that you can use.
Yeah,
and we haven't even talked about like all the things you can ride in the game.
Yep,
like there's like the horse like creature, and then there's like the mech suit. And then there's one section where I'm literally in a hand, like a robot hand, and I'm like running like through the field in this like golden hand. I guess that's kind of a spoiler, but
not really.
I don't know. It's just a vehicle, and I haven't even unlocked all the vehicles and animals and stuff. There's like 8 slots or something.
Yeah, I think I've only got 3 or 4. Like rideable, whatever you would call it, like transports or rides or whatever. Yeah, but there's like 8 slots, and I've only got 3 or 4 of them. So yeah, there's tons, and that's one cool thing too with this game. And then you just said it, like if you just allow yourself to kind of just run around and get lost, that's when this game is special. Like even though it kind of force feeds you story, when you just get away from like the main part of the story and just kind of do the Breath of the Wild thing, I think that's where the Breath of the Wild comparisons are, because there's a really pretty world and it like kind of like a mysterious world that you'll just like walk over this hill and see some really cool area. You're like, okay, I want to go in there.
I got some Last of Us vibes, since it technically is like a post-apocalyptic world, even though it's gorgeous. There are sections where it's randomly like a rundown like gas station, and you go inside, you collect all the loot, and I felt like, wow, this kind of reminds me of The Last of Us. And you're using a triangle to pick everything up, just like how The Last of Us was.
Or there'll be like a bridge that cars would drive across, and it's like crumbled into stuff like that. Yeah, that was really cool.
And there's cars that you can like open up and like get stuff out of their trunks.
Days Gone style.
Yeah, exactly.
That reminded me of Days Gone. It draws comparisons to a lot of games. For some reason, for me, I was getting a lot of Ghost of Tsushima vibes last night.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of like
that too.
Yeah, because there's like a lot of like different like random things that you can find, like a shrine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That just felt like very Ghost of Tsushima to me when I'd come upon those things.
Yeah, like there's all those shrines where you can like he goes to and like does this like stance thing, and then he collects like some currency to go upgrade something. So that kind of reminded me of
PSI power or something.
Yeah. And also another element of this game that I had no idea about was the Mass Effect type stuff, where it's like you're either good or bad, and it's like you can go full evil or full good guy, and it can like change the whole like outcome of the story and stuff. And I didn't even realize it was that type of game.
Yeah, and I think that like there's a few games that do that. Like Infamous does that too, right? Some of the early Infamous games. What was cool to me with that, like one experience, and I won't share the mission, but you get to choose which tribe you side with. Like there's this, like it's like the world is, you're trying to stop the world from coming to an end, like typical story for a video game. And there's these different tribes, and you get to side with them. Some tribes are good, and some tribes are like kind of dark. And just out of curiosity, I chose the tribe that was dark, and so I was just running through the world doing side stuff, and I see one of my tribe members, and he kind of like motions me over, and I go and talk to him, and he said, "We need you to do this thing for us." And like I said, I don't tell you what it is, but you like do something in the middle of the night to send a message to these other villages, and I'm like, damn, that is pretty freaking dark. Like I was not expecting that. That was really cool.
And it took me around 14 hours to beat the main story, and that's only with doing probably 2 or 3 side quests. It's a lot of fun. Also, the Breath of the Wild comparison, another one, is the world has these 4 beasts in it, which might sound familiar.
Yep.
And you basically have to bring each of them down, like you have to defeat them, and then you earn some type of trust from a clan or something like that. I can't remember. But those boss fights are actually pretty fun and unique. But they make you use the environment in some type of way usually to bring them down, which I thought was fun.
The boss fights in this game were some of my favorite boss fights. Like any game I played in recent memory, like for the game kind of has a certain feel to it the whole way through, but the boss fights all felt very unique, and they just felt like the scale just ratcheted up. It felt like more epic and like a larger scale than the rest of the game, which kind of felt like a little bit smaller scale. But like the boss fights, you can tell they really went all out for. And like you said, it was cool too because at least in the boss fights I've done, it requires more than just your fighting skills. It's always you have to incorporate something else with you in each boss fight, which makes it unique. So yeah, the boss fights were awesome.
And that pretty much is it, right? Can you think of anything else we need to go over?
No, I would just stress again to anyone who plays this, do not get frustrated by the opening hour or two, or maybe even two and a
3 or
half
4.
hours, yeah, or 3 hours. Once you get past that hump and once it clicks, it's a great game and it's really fun. And I still got a few hours left. I am actually going to go and play it as soon as we're done with this video. So I'm having a lot of fun with it.
So yeah, if you're turned off by the opening hours of this game, just keep on pushing through them, and it gets a lot better. And Brett, is it worth $60?
Absolutely.
All right, sounds good. This has been the first PlayStation Enthusiast video in a long time. I'm going to try and make at least one video a week for the foreseeable future. Maybe Brett will be in them, maybe he won't. But I'm going to try and buckle down and start creating content on this channel again, because I'm making content over on Nintendo Enthusiast, and I get paid to do that. Over here, this is just my personal channel, so I kind of just want to try and grow it in the meantime, just in case things ever go bad and I need to fall back. And it's nice having a channel that has a decent amount of subs, you know?
Absolutely. And anytime you need someone to do a video, I'm here.
Sounds good. This was our Biomutant reaction review type thing. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up and maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you did not enjoy this video, make sure you hit that thumbs down. It still helps out either way. Ha! We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
See you guys.